I was carrying 4 plates when I saw the man who destroyed my life sitting 10 feet away from me. He didn't recognize me. Why would he? 3 years ago, I wore expensive suits and made $1 million a year. Today, I'm just a waitress. But in exactly 30 seconds, I'm going to say 5 words that will make a billionaire stop breathing and expose the biggest fraud in Chicago. My hands are shaking. My heart is pounding. And the man who framed me for crimes I didn't commit is about to learn that some ghosts come back to haunt you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you want to see how a waitress takes down a criminal billionaire, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. This is a story about revenge, justice, and the 5 words that changed everything. Let's go. My name is Elena Rodriguez, and 3 years ago, I was somebody. Today, I'm nobody. And that's exactly how I wanted it. I balanced 4 heavy plates on my arms as I walked through the Sterling Room, the fanciest restaurant in Chicago. The smell of expensive steaks and rich wine filled the air. My feet hurt in these cheap black shoes, and my back ached from carrying trays all day. But I kept my head down and my mouth shut, just like I had for the last 3 years. Nobody looks at a waitress. Not really. They see the uniform, the smile, the person bringing their food. But they don't see you. And for me, being invisible was the whole point. 3 years ago, I had a different life. I wore expensive suits and worked on the 40th floor of Stratton Financial, one of the biggest money companies in America. I was 26 years old and already making more money than my parents ever dreamed of. I built computer programs that could predict which companies would make money and which would fail. I was good at it. Really good. My boss, Vincent Calloway, told me I was special. He said I had a gift. He treated me like a daughter, took me to fancy dinners, introduced me to important people. I trusted him with everything. That was my first mistake. One morning, federal agents walked into my office. They said I had been stealing money, creating fake documents, and cheating clients out of millions. They showed me emails with my name on them, reports I never wrote, transactions I never made. Everything pointed to me. Vincent stood in the corner of the room, looking sad and disappointed. "I trusted you, Elena," he said, shaking his head. "How could you do this?" I screamed that it wasn't true. I cried and begged them to check the computer logs, to look at the real files. But everything had been changed. Every digital fingerprint led back to me. Someone had been very, very careful. It took me 6 months to figure out the truth. Vincent had used my programs, my codes, my ideas to make himself billions. And when people started asking questions, he needed someone to blame. He chose me because I was young, because I trusted him, because I had access to everything. By the time I understood what happened, it was too late. My bank accounts were frozen. My apartment was taken. My lawyer said I was lucky they offered a deal instead of sending me to prison. I lost my license to work in finance. I lost my reputation. I lost everything. So I became a ghost. I changed my hair from long and professional to short and messy.
Ibura no Makeu.
I got a job at the Sterling Room using my middle name, Maria. I served food to people who used to be my equals and pretended I had never been anything more than this. And I waited. Tonight started like any other night. The restaurant was full of rich people making deals and drinking wine that cost more than my weekly paycheck. I moved between tables, refilling water glasses, taking orders, staying invisible. Then I heard his voice. Vincent Calloway walked past me without even glancing my way. He was laughing, his hand on the shoulder of another man I recognized immediately. Richard Sterling, the billionaire who owned half of Chicago. They sat at table 7, right in my section. My hands started shaking. I dropped them to my sides and took a deep breath. 3 years. 3 years of hiding, and here he was, 10 feet away from me. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw hot coffee in his lying face. But I did none of those things. I picked up my notepad and walked to their table. "Good evening, gentlemen," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Can I start you with something to drink?" Vincent didn't even look at me. Neither did Richard. I was just the waitress. Scotch top shelf, Richard said, not taking his eyes off the papers spread across the table. And keep them coming. We're celebrating. 2 other men joined them. They talked about something called Vertex Tech, throwing around numbers so big they made my head spin. $40 billion. The biggest deal of the year, they said. I brought their drinks and their food, always listening, always invisible. And slowly, piece by piece, I started to understand what they were discussing. Richard Sterling was about to buy Vertex Tech for $40 billion. It would make him one of the most powerful men in the country. Vincent was his advisor on the deal, the person telling him it was safe, that Vertex was worth every penny. But as I listened to the numbers they mentioned, something felt wrong. The company's value didn't match its earnings. The debt ratios were strange. The shell companies involved had weird names I recognized from my old life. I had seen this pattern before. I had built the program that created this pattern. Vincent was doing it again. He was setting up another person to take a fall, and this time, that person was Richard Sterling. My heart pounded in my chest. I could walk away. I could stay invisible. This wasn't my problem anymore. But then Richard said something that stopped me cold. Vincent, you're sure about this? My entire company is on the line here. If this goes wrong, I lose everything. Vincent laughed and patted his hand. Richard, trust me. Have I ever steered you wrong? This is the deal of a lifetime. I saw myself 3 years ago, hearing those same words. Trust me. Have I ever steered you wrong? I set down the plate of steak I was carrying. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Excuse me, I said quietly. The 4 men kept talking, ignoring me completely. Excuse me, I said louder. Richard looked up, annoyed. Yes. What is it? I looked directly at Vincent. For the first time in 3 years, I let him see me. Really see me. Then I said the 5 words that would change everything. You're being set up. The table went completely silent. Vincent's face turned white. Richard's eyes narrowed. What did you just say? Richard asked slowly. I could feel my whole body trembling, but I kept my voice steady. Sir, I know this sounds crazy, but please listen to me. This deal you're about to make, this Vertex Tech purchase? It's a trap. And if you sign those papers, you're going to lose everything. Vincent stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Richard, this woman is clearly disturbed. I'll have security remove her immediately. But Richard held up his hand. He was staring at me with sharp, intelligent eyes. No. Let her talk. He leaned back in his chair. You have 30 seconds to explain yourself before I have you fired and arrested for harassment. Go. I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I stopped being invisible. My name isn't Maria, I said. It's Elena Rodriguez. 3 years ago, I worked at Stratton Financial. I was the one who built the program that made Vincent Callaway a billionaire. And I was the one he framed when people started asking questions about where all that money really came from. Vincent's face went from white to red. She's lying. She's a criminal. Richard, don't listen to her. But Richard wasn't looking at Vincent anymore. He was looking at me, and I could see the gears turning in his brilliant mind. Keep talking, he said. Richard Sterling stood up and buttoned his jacket. Everyone out, he said to the restaurant. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. When a billionaire speaks, people listen. Within 5 minutes, the Sterling room was empty except for me, Richard, Vincent, and the 2 other men from the table. Richard pointed to a chair. Sit down, Miss Rodriguez. And start from the beginning. He said. My legs felt like jelly, but my mind was clear. I had been preparing for this moment for 3 years, even if I didn't know it. 4 years ago, I created a program called Apex Predictor. I began. It could find patterns in company finances that humans couldn't see. It could tell you if a company was really successful or just pretending to be. Vincent hired me right out of college because of that program. Vincent tried to interrupt, but Richard held up his hand again. Let her finish. The program worked too well, I continued. We made Stratton Financial hundreds of millions in the first year. But then Vincent figured out that the program could do something else. It could create fake patterns that looked real. It could make a failing company look successful, or make a successful company look like it was about to collapse. One of the men at the table, the older one with gray hair, leaned forward. Why would anyone want to do that? Money, I said simply. If you know a company looks good but is actually failing, you can sell it for billions right before it crashes. Or if you make a good company look bad, you can buy it cheap and then fix the problems that never really existed. Richard's eyes were locked on mine. And you're saying Vincent used your program to do this? Yes. But I didn't know it at first. He told me we were just testing different scenarios, running practice models. I was young and stupid, and I believed him. My voice cracked a little. I believed everything he told me. Vincent finally spoke up. Richard, this is ridiculous. She's a convicted criminal trying to cause trouble. Why are you even listening to her? I was never convicted, I shot back, looking at him for the first time. You made sure of that, didn't you, Vincent? You offered me a deal. Plead guilty to lesser charges, give up my license, disappear quietly, or face 20 years in prison for crimes I didn't commit. What choice did I have? You had every choice. Vincent shouted. You were the one who. I was the one who trusted you. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. My voice was shaking now, but I didn't care. You were like a father to me. My own dad died when I was 15, and you knew that. You knew how much I needed someone to believe in me. The room went quiet. I could feel tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Richard spoke softly. Sit down, Elena. Please. He said. I took a deep breath and continued. 3 months before they arrested me, Vincent started acting strange. He would have private meetings, lock his office door, send me home early. I thought he was planning something big. I thought maybe he was going to make me a partner. I laughed bitterly. Instead, he was building a case against me. He created fake emails from my account. He made it look like I had been stealing client money and hiding it in offshore accounts. He planted evidence on my computer, in my files, everywhere. And the worst part. I looked directly at Vincent. He used my own program to do it. He used the codes I wrote to frame me for fraud. Vincent's face was red now, but he stayed silent. After I took the deal and lost everything, I spent 6 months living in a shelter, I said. I had no money, no job, no family to help me. Every finance company in America had been warned about me. I couldn't even get a job at a bank telling people which line to stand in. Richard leaned back in his chair. So how did you figure out it was Vincent? I had made a backup, I said. One single backup drive of all my original work, hidden in my old apartment. It took me months to get access to it again, but when I did, I compared my original codes to the ones the federal agents had shown me. They were different. Someone had changed them, added things, made them do things I never designed them to do. And the only person who had access to your codes was Vincent, Richard said. It wasn't a question. The only person I trusted with everything, I whispered. The gray-haired man spoke up again. This is a fascinating story, but what does it have to do with Vertex Tech? I turned to look at him. Everything. Because Vincent is doing the exact same thing to Richard that he did to me. And I can prove it. Richard leaned forward. How? Vertex Tech is hiding massive debts, I said. They're buried in shell companies that all trace back to one location, Luxembourg. The company you think is worth $40 billion is actually worth maybe $5 billion. The rest is fake value, created using a version of my old program. Vincent laughed, but it sounded forced. That's impossible. We've had 3 independent firms evaluate Vertex. Were any of those firms Castellano Associates, Murray Financial, or Apex Consulting Group? I asked. Vincent's smile disappeared. I thought so, I said. Those aren't independent firms. They're all owned by the same holding company. A company called Phoenix Holdings. Richard's other assistant, a young woman with sharp eyes, pulled out her phone and started typing frantically. Phoenix Holdings doesn't exist, I continued. It's a shell company created to make Vertex look legitimate. Once you buy Vertex, those fake debts will become real. They'll be transferred to Sterling Industries. And within 6 months, your entire company will collapse trying to pay debts that don't really exist. And then what? Richard asked quietly. Then Vincent and his partners will buy Sterling Industries for pennies on the dollar. They'll discover that the debts were fake, make them disappear, and resell your company for billions. It's called a hostile takeover hidden inside a bad deal. The young woman looked up from her phone. Mr. Sterling, I'm seeing some concerning connections here. Phoenix Holdings is registered in Luxembourg, just like she said. And it has ties to several companies that Vincent has recommended to us in the past. Vincent stood up. I don't have to listen to this. Richard, I've been your advisor for 8 years. 8 years. And you're going to believe some disgraced waitress over me. Richard didn't answer. He just kept staring at me. Elena, he said finally. If what you're saying is true, can you prove it? I can, I said. But I'll need access to Vertex Tech's financial systems. Real access, not just the public information. I need to see their encrypted files. That's impossible, Vincent said quickly. Those systems are locked down. Even I don't have full access. You don't, I agreed. But Patricia Hayes does. Everyone turned to look at the gray-haired man. His face had gone pale. Patricia is your head of risk management, I said to Richard. She's been with Sterling Industries for 12 years. And she's also been taking payments from Vincent for the last 3 years. That's a lie. Patricia, I realize now that the gray-haired man was actually a woman with very short hair, stood up. Richard, I would never. Sit down, Patricia, Richard said coldly. Elena, how do you know this? Because I've been watching, I said simply. For 3 years, I've been serving food and drinks in this restaurant, listening to deals, watching patterns. I saw Patricia meet with Vincent 6 times in the last year. Always at a different restaurant, always paying cash, always when they thought nobody was paying attention. That doesn't prove anything, Patricia said, but her voice shook. You're right, I said. It doesn't. But the money trail does. Vincent has been paying a consulting company called Redwood Advisory $100,000 a month for 3 years. Redwood Advisory has 1 employee and 1 client. That employee is your sister, Patricia. And that client is Vincent Calloway. The room exploded. Patricia started shouting. Vincent started shouting. The young assistant was typing frantically on her phone. Richard just sat there, perfectly still, staring at me. Finally, he raised his hand. The room went quiet again. Elena Rodriguez, he said slowly. If I give you access to our systems, how long will it take you to prove what you're saying? I looked at my watch. It was 9:30 at night. 4 hours, I said. Give me 4 hours and full access, and I'll show you everything. Every fake company, every hidden debt, every lie Vincent has built into this deal. Richard looked at Vincent, then at Patricia, then back at me. You have 3 hours, he said. Starting now. Richard Sterling's office was on the 65th floor, with windows that showed the entire city of Chicago spread out below like a carpet of lights. I sat at his desk with 3 computer screens in front of me, my fingers flying across the keyboard. It felt like coming home. Patricia had been escorted out by security, still screaming about lawsuits and lies. Vincent sat in the corner with 2 of Richard's bodyguards standing over him. Richard had made it clear, nobody was leaving until I was finished. Talk to me, Richard said, standing behind my chair. What are you looking for? Everything starts with money trails, I explained. my eyes scanning lines of code. Vincent is smart. He doesn't just hide the bad stuff. He buries it under layers of good stuff, like hiding a rotten apple at the bottom of a barrel full of perfect ones. I pulled up Vertex Tech's public financial statements. They looked beautiful. Growth every quarter, happy investors, glowing reports. This is what everyone sees, I said. But watch what happens when I dig deeper. I entered Patricia's access codes. Richard had forced her to hand them over before she left. Suddenly, new folders appeared. Hidden files that weren't supposed to exist. There, I said, pointing at the screen. See that company? Meridian Consulting. According to these public records, Meridian paid Vertex $20 million for consulting services last year. That makes Vertex look successful. But, Richard prompted. But Meridian Consulting is owned by Phoenix Holdings. Which means Vincent used fake money from a fake company to make Vertex look profitable. It's like paying yourself and calling it income. I kept digging. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Fake contracts.
Invented client.
Debts hidden in companies with names like Sunrise Capital and Golden Gate Enterprises. Companies that only existed on paper. How much? Richard asked quietly. How much of Vertex's value is fake? I ran the numbers through a program I had been building in my head for 3 years. $32 billion. Out of the $40 billion you were going to pay, $32 billion is smoke and mirrors. Richard's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. There's more, I said. I opened another folder, this one marked Project Trojan. My heart started pounding. This is it. This is the proof. Inside the folder were 2 sets of code. One from 2019, the year Vincent had framed me. One from last month. Both used the exact same structure, the exact same patterns, the exact same tricks. What am I looking at? Richard asked. My work, I said softly. This is my program, the one I built 4 years ago. Vincent copied it, piece by piece. He used it to frame me in 2019, and he was planning to use it to destroy you in 2025. I pulled up an email dated 2 weeks ago. Look at this. The email was from Vincent to someone named Marcus Webb. It read, Sterling takes the bait next week. Once the deal closes, we trigger the debt cascade. 6 months maximum before Sterling Industries collapses. Phoenix Holdings acquires at 10 cents on the dollar. Total profit, $35 billion, split 3 ways. Richard's hand gripped the back of my chair so hard I heard the leather creak. 3 ways, he said. Who's the third? I pulled up another file. Patricia Hayes. She was supposed to get $5 billion for her help. Vincent promised her early retirement and a house in Monaco. From the corner, Vincent finally spoke. You can't prove any of this. That code could have come from anywhere. Those emails could be faked, just like you claim I faked yours. I spun around in the chair to face him. You're right. Anyone could fake an email. But they can't fake metadata. They can't fake the digital fingerprints that show exactly who created a file, when they created it, and what computer they used. I pulled up a screen full of numbers and codes. This program was created on October 15, 2019, at 3:47 in the morning, on a computer registered to Vincent Callaway at Stratton Financial. The IP address matches your home office, Vincent. The same office where you told me I was like a daughter to you. My voice broke on that last word, but I kept going. And this version, the one you were planning to use on Richard? Created on October 3, 2025, same computer, same IP address. But here's the really interesting part. I pulled up one more file. I still had access to my old backup drive. And when I compare the original program I wrote to these 2 versions, the core code is identical. Not similar. Identical. You didn't just steal my work, Vincent. You didn't even bother to change it. Vincent's face had gone from red to gray. Richard, listen to me. No, Richard said. His voice was cold as ice. You listen to me. Elena, Can you send all of this to my legal team? Already done, I said. I've been copying files to a secure server for the last 2 hours. Everything is backed up in 3 different locations. Richard pulled out his phone. James, get the federal prosecutor on the line. Yes, now. I don't care what time it is. He looked at Vincent. You're finished. Not just with me. With everyone. By tomorrow morning, every person you've ever done business with will know exactly what you are. Vincent stood up, but the bodyguards pushed him back down. You can't do this. I have friends, Richard. I have connections. I'll bury you. With what? Richard said. With fake companies and stolen code? With lies built on top of lies? You're going to prison, Vincent. And unlike what you did to Elena, I'm going to make sure you actually get convicted. He turned to me. How did you know? How did you know it was Vertex specifically? I didn't, I admitted. Not until tonight. But I've been tracking Vincent's movements for 2 years. Every meeting, every deal, every handshake. I knew he was planning something big. When I heard you mention Vertex and saw how excited he was, I knew it had to be the target. Richard was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I didn't expect. I'm sorry. I looked up at him, confused. Why are you sorry? Because no one believed you 3 years ago. Because you lost everything, and no one cared enough to look deeper. Because you had to serve me drinks and pretend to be someone else just to survive. He sat down in the chair across from me. That shouldn't have happened to you. I felt the tears finally come. 3 years of anger, fear, and pain all hit me at once. I just wanted someone to listen, I whispered. Just one person to say, maybe she's telling the truth. But nobody did. I'm listening now, Richard said. And I'm going to make this right. The next 6 hours were a blur. Federal agents arrived and arrested Vincent and Patricia. Lawyers filled the office, reading through everything I had found. The sun came up over Chicago, turning the buildings gold and pink. Richard's young assistant, her name was Sarah, brought me coffee and a breakfast sandwich. You're amazing, she said. I want to be like you when I grow up. I almost laughed. I'm only 29. And you just took down one of the biggest financial criminals in the country while working as a waitress, she said. That's pretty amazing. At 9 in the morning, Richard came back into the office. He looked tired but satisfied. It's done, he said. Vincent and Patricia are both in federal custody. The Vertex deal is canceled. And I just had a very interesting conversation with the people who forced you to take that deal 3 years ago. I sat up straighter. What did they say? They said that new evidence has come to light, and they're prepared to overturn your conviction and restore your professional license. You'll have your life back, Elena. Your real life. I should have been happy. I should have been jumping for joy. But instead, I just felt empty. What if I don't want it back? I said quietly, what if I'm not that person anymore? Richard smiled. Then maybe you can be someone even better. He pulled out a piece of paper and slid it across the desk. This is a job offer. Head of Risk and Security at Sterling Industries. Your job would be to make sure no one ever tries to pull something like this on us again. The salary is $1.5 million a year, plus stock options. I stared at the paper. Richard, I can't. Yes, you can, he said firmly. Elena, you just saved my entire company. You turned 3 years of suffering into the most valuable skill anyone could have. You know how to spot a liar. You know how criminals think. And more importantly, you never gave up, even when everyone else did. I picked up the paper. My hands were shaking. What if I mess up? What if I fail? Then you fail, Richard said with a shrug. But somehow, I don't think you will. You've already survived the worst thing that could happen to you. Everything else is easy compared to that. I thought about the last 3 years. The shelters. The hungry nights. The endless job applications that went nowhere. The shame of serving food to people who used to be my colleagues. And I thought about the look on Vincent's face when he realized I had beaten him. "When do I start?" I asked. Richard grinned. "How about right now? We have about 40 other deals to review, and I'm guessing at least 3 of them have problems. Think you can find them?" I stood up and stretched. My waitress uniform was wrinkled, and I probably smelled like restaurant grease. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt like myself again. "I can find them all," I said. 3 months later, I sat in my own office on the 62nd floor. I had found 7 bad deals in Richard's pipeline and stopped them all. Word got out fast. Other companies started calling, asking if I could review their deals too. Vincent Calloway was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, and theft. Patricia got 15 years. The program I wrote, my program, was shut down and sealed as evidence. I could have been angry. I could have spent the rest of my life bitter about the 3 years they stole from me. But instead, I chose something different. I started a foundation that helps people who have been falsely accused of crimes. People who lost everything because someone powerful decided to lie. I use my skills to investigate their cases, to find the truth hidden under layers of deception. Last week, I helped prove that a woman in Detroit had been framed by her business partner, just like I was. Yesterday, I stopped a corporate takeover that would have destroyed a family-owned company in Seattle. And this morning, I got a letter from a young man who had just been cleared of charges after 3 years in prison, thanks to evidence my team uncovered. "Thank you for believing in me," he wrote. "Thank you for listening when no one else would." I keep that letter on my desk, right next to my old Waitress name tag. I keep the name tag to remind myself where I came from. To remember that being invisible taught me to see things other people miss. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing you ever did with it. My name is Elena Rodriguez. 3 years ago, I lost everything. Today, I save people from losing theirs. And I'm just getting started. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been knocked down and told you'd never get back up, remember this: your story isn't over. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what you're really made of. Sometimes you have to become nobody before you can become somebody that matters. Don't give up. Don't stay silent. And never, ever stop fighting for the truth. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for a person like you to believe in them. Be that person.